Welcome. This week's video, we're going to catch up with Zak. We first spoke to Zak back in February when he started his strength training journey after a break of about 30 years. He found the Never Toiled to Lift ebook, and that prompted him to get started again, and he's now consistently been working out for about 8 months. So today we have a chat, find out how he's been getting on, what benefits he's noticed, any difficulties he found, and he gives a few tips on anyone else wanting to get started. So let's find out how he's getting on. Welcome back, Zak. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So I think last time we chatted a little bit more about your history before. So as a reminder for everyone, so it's you previously did some weight training at a relatively high level in your younger years. Then it was more recently had a bit of a break over the last 10 years where you had your move to Wales and did some more running, park run, but then obviously COVID hit and then you had a bit of martial arts in between. But if I missed anything there or anything you'd like to kind of add in for that?
Well, you mentioned I weight trained at a fairly high level. Well, the gym I was a member of in Birmingham had as a member Dorian Yates, if you know that name.
No.
Well, you have a quick look him up. Legend in bodybuilding, a monster, absolute monster of a man. And I've been away from weight training really for 30 years, I'd say. You say a bit of martial arts. Did a bit more than a bit. It was my whole life, really, for about 15 years. I had my own club, trained people to black belt. Yeah, it was
Amazing.
There were good times.
So you said it's about a 30-year gap from the last time you did the weights or kind of strength training up until when you started again earlier this year.
Yeah. I dabbled here and there at home, but I'd not done anything to a plan, really. And that's where I was lacking.
Perfect. And then you said that's where you found the ebook. Just to set the scene a little bit with the ebook, and just for anyone listening who's kind of not discovered it yet, it goes through a lot of the theory and followed by a 12-week an 8-step plan to build your first 12-week program. That it's not one you're going to follow blindly that someone else has set for you. It's trying to teach you how to create your own. So there's a bit of a stage going through the goal planning where you kind of really work out what your motivations are and what the goals are, and then followed by how to pick some exercise and how to maybe make them more challenging if they're pretty easy for you, but also to try and regress them and make them more manageable if you might have pain or you're just already feeling quite weak and unable to do, say, a bodyweight squat. There's ways to make that easier. I'd love to know how you found that planning process initially, I suppose, before we come on to the exercises.
Well, it was structured in a way that was not generally prevalent at the time I last trained. Your categorization of exercises was more comprehensive than I recall as well. Choosing exercises from the clusters was very easy to implement.
Good. It's trying to find that right balance of not being prescriptive. I don't want people to just do what I say. I want them to come away with the knowledge of being able to choose. But if you've got too much choice, it's almost paralyzing and you kind of, it's hard to make a decision. So yeah, for every movement pattern, there's three exercises or 3 variations of each movement pattern that you can start with. But again, if you've experienced, then you can bring your own into that as well. But again, with the goal planning, we talked about motivations. At that point, what was your biggest motivation for starting?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm a returnee of over 30 years lapse. I had become aware of my failing strength over the last few years, and I strongly suspected I was losing muscle mass as well. And that's a very big driver for me.
Mm-hmm. I remember one of the things you mentioned in the last chat we had was the ability to get up from kneeling from the floor. Was there anything else like that?
I was struggling with that.
That you can remember that was a kind of an everyday type task that you might have to do, especially, and we've not mentioned, but Zak works on a big freehold. It was mentioned just before we started filming that involves next week's job is 700 yards worth of hedge trimming.
and that's without without fencing. Because fences don't last forever, especially with animals. They batter them down, they rot away, snap off, all sorts. There's hedging, and that's hard because it's digging big holes, by hand. And yeah, it's all day, every day, basically.
Yeah. And were there any particular difficulties you're having with it back then, or?
No, I think I felt that I wasn't as robust in my doings, as it were. I had a spell of doing a load of fencing, just before summer, and I found it very hard going. And I knew the real reason was that I was lacking in endurance and in muscular endurance, because it is very, very hard work. And apart from the rising from kneeling unaided, there wasn't a particular thing, but it's all a bit of everything really that I've noticed reduction in.
Yeah. And at that point, when you went through the planning process, did you have any particular goals that you'd set for yourself at that point?
Yeah, well, just the same things: restoring lost muscle mass and strength, and normalizing my body weight, because I'm obese, and that's got to change, because that's the biggest threat to my long-term health, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. So it was just the feeling stronger and improving health. And I think I remember you also mentioned last time that you've turned 62 at the start of the year, or was it the end of last year? And
no, start this year.
And I remember you saying that if you could have another 10 years of being able to do pretty much anything you wanted to be able to do and have the physical capabilities to do that, you'd feel very happy with that.
Absolutely. I think that'd be, I mean, I see people of my age and I think, well, no detriment to them. They're finished. Lifestyle choices mostly. Some have a bad roll of the genetic dice, of course, and become ill. And that's, nobody can do anything about that. But I look at the amount of people I know of my age and think, what have you done to yourself? I know I'm obese and I know I'm trying to change it. In fact, I am changing it. But I look at them and say, you think you're just, all you are, you're going to turn into a drain on the NHS resources, because you're just going to demand more and more interventions to put right what you've done to yourself. And I think that's awful. I really do.
Were there any other difficulties that you found when you were creating the exercise plan in that first instance?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't, and I still can't, adopt the normal barbell back squat position. We talked about this before. I used a hex bar, which is the bar you stand inside, to get over that. Since then, I've built my own squat rack, and using straps over my shoulders, I'm now able to do a version of low back squats, which is much better. I've got a number of old shoulder and neck injuries that preclude standing shoulder press, except with very light weights. I was happy to regress that to chest press, which is my favorite exercise anyway. I also struggle with split squats with a kettlebell due to pain in one knee. That's been resolved now with the aid of a good physiotherapist. And I was obliged to perform wood chopper using a dumbbell instead of an exercise band, because at the time I had nowhere to anchor a band. But apart from those things, yeah, I'm okay.
Great. And there's a couple of things I want to come back to from that. So firstly, let's come back to the knee then. So have you found then, through the process of starting to become stronger and maybe adapting the exercises initially to then build them back up again, so you're now saying that your knee has fully resolved, or it's just easier than it was? Or
it's easier than it was, and I'm still continuing with the exercises you gave me for it.
Yeah.
And I hope that, unfortunately, in the last week or 10 days, I've managed to tweak it somehow. I don't know how I did it. I think I was doing squats, but well, more to the point, it became noticeable when I was doing squats, and they're unlikely to injure your knee. I understand that, particularly if you're using good form, which I hope I am. But I think it's just a question of let it settle down again, which I've been doing, and then carry on with the exercises you gave me, and it should improve, carry on improving.
Yeah, great. And that's great to hear that it's not holding you back from the exercises. And again, a lot of people would go down the thought process of, I've got knee pain, I better not challenge it in case it makes it worse.
No.
and then it's a decline in strength that actually tends to lead to more issues than it is actually the process of strengthening. And yes, we've got to be careful getting started, but great to hear. And then the other bit I wanted to come back to there was the fact you mentioned you'd built your own squat rack, and I'd love how innovative you've been throughout this year of all the things you've done, and I'll put some photos to some of them. But for people listening, my highlight was the weight plates made out of cement. That I don't know if you want to tell people a little bit about how you how you thought about those and created those.
Yeah, I cast a lot of my weight plates out of concrete as their availability plummeted. And more importantly, the cost had spiraled because of the pandemic. I mean, a 10K weight plate off Amazon delivered one off 99 quid. And that's just outrageous. I mean, you know, a 10K plate's no good to me at all. One isn't. No, you need, well, quite a few. And I'm not going to be spending that sort of money. So I made a mold and cast my own out of concrete, and they've been fine, absolutely fine. I made a dumbbell rack as well because one of my hobbies is, well, my main hobby is blacksmithing. And because of that, I understand how to fabricate things. And I've got a fair bit of steel knocking about. And as it happened, I got some 40 mil angle. And I thought, let's have a think about this. So I made a couple of stands for either end, planted it on the right width away for the center portion of the dumbbell to go in. Yep. Done.
I know not everyone would be confident maybe putting it all together, but you don't necessarily have to go for the most expensive equipment available to get started. And
no, not at all.
But yeah, I love the innovation. I love sort of seeing the photos as they came up in the group that we've got on Facebook, and yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, I suppose it's been about 7 months now since you've got going with it all, or well, maybe 8 months because it's August.
It's 8.
Yeah, I suppose let's start within the gym itself. What progressions have you made, whether that's the weight you're lifting or have you kind of moved up different exercises?
Well, I've completed the 12-week program that in your ebook, and then I felt it was time to move on, you know, because I could carry on with all those exercises, or I could, because the thing for me is I want to get stronger. Yep. And to do that, I think I've got to get a bit bigger muscularly. And when I started, I was on, I think I mentioned 20 kilo for bench press and squat.
Yes.
And now I'm on about 70 kilo for bench press and about 80 for squat.
How about other types of lifts?
Well,
you're on now.
Deadlift, I'm not. It's not part of this protocol. Bent over row is, but again, I'm on high reps, low weights for this. So I think it was probably somewhere around the 65 mark for deadlift. For bent over row, sorry. Deadlift, I struggle with that really because of lack of flexibility due to an old leg injury. Mm-hmm. In fact, I struggle with squats. I can't into the hole, in a traditional hole with squats. I can't get my thighs parallel to the floor. But something's better than nothing, I think.
Yeah. And I always say that if you can't get deep into a squat, just load the top part heavier, and you'll still get some gains in the muscles. And
definitely, yeah.
Because within the hip hinge variation within the 12-week program, which variation were you using? Was it the deadlift or the Romania deadlift? Or the other one was the bridge on the floor, which I imagine.
Oh no, I couldn't go anywhere near that. I've got no chance with my neck and flexibility. I think I did Romanian deadlift during that program, but I've since made myself a dedicated deadlift bar using old wheels for some of the weight. And I scored a load of 1-inch plastic, the plastic shot-filled discs off Amazon Facebook Marketplace, which is another grand resource. And it's a 1-inch bar. And because these wheels raise the bar quite high up off the floor, of course, they're 24 kilos each, the wheels are. So it's a good weight.
Yeah.
I've had to build a platform to stand on to get my feet up to 8 inches below the bar, which is the traditional height for starting with a deadlift bar. But I do struggle with it because of my lack of flexibility. And I may have to adopt the same attitude with deadlift as I do with squat, in that I might have to just do a shorter movement from higher up and get rid of the.
A lot of people do is or traditionally, if you've just got the bar, you might just place those on small blocks that lift the bar up slightly. So rather than the 8 inches, it'll be maybe 10 or 12.
Oh, this is like 15, I think, with the wheels, the centers of the wheels with the bar. But I find it, obviously, I'm going to find it much easier to lift from that position. I always will do. Yeah. But I just have to work and see how it goes. Really.
That's all the improvements within the gym. I'd love to know what you've noticed outside of the gym.
I feel more confident that I'm not just sliding into that awful spiral that usually ultimately ends with needing help to get out of bed, bathe and toilet. I'm certainly able to walk further without fatigue too. I have to carry 2 10-litre watering cans uphill over 80 yards of uneven terrain for the sheep. That task has become easier. Also, as we've talked about, I'm now able to rise from kneeling without support, but I've yet to come across a situation that tests my overall strength.
But yeah, and which is good, because the more strength you have, the less chance that normal day-to-day activities is going to make you feel like you're challenging your top level of strength. And that's not necessarily what the strength training is designed to do. It's to make rather than your normal day-to-day working at 90% of your max, we want it down at 30, 40%.
Yeah,
so you've got plenty of buffer and you've got plenty of strength to work with should a task suddenly become a bit more strenuous than you used to, rather than always kind of living on the threshold. Great. And I think from what you've mentioned through our previous chats, it's the confidence side of things, and that's huge for a lot of people. It's just feeling more positive about the future, being able to sort of say yes to things that you may not have said yes to. And I know that lockdowns and things have affected things, and something I was interested to find out is more recently, in the last month or so, I think, the park runs have started up again. Have you managed to get back to that, or have you avoided it still?
Well, my park run starts this Saturday, and I've been able to go around the course as a private individual for some months. And the first time I went round, having done 98 park runs and over the previous 2 years, and it was stopped 17 months ago. And I've got a treadmill at home, and I go on that. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just take it nice and steady going around the park run. Got round, thought, blimey, that was a bit slow. And then the next 3 days I was crippled. I mean, proper crippled, because I deconditioned that much. Now, it took me 2 years to get to the point where I could run the whole thing. Yeah. And I've had to walk it since, which is fine. It's better than nothing. And come Saturday, that's exactly what I'm going to have to do again, because there's no way I can run it. I don't want to put up with the pain, the delayed onset muscle soreness. I don't want to put up with that. Not in that magnitude. So I'll have to walk it and try and get back to where I was. But I'll get another free T-shirt in 2 more park runs, so 100. You get a free T-shirt. So I'm looking forward to that.
The other thing I ask people is if your friends and family have noticed a change, or how they've reacted to you to lifting weights. Do they kind of support it, or do they a bit nervous about it?
Well, my wife is fine with it, because I've been around it all my adult life. Yeah. Others friends, acquaintances, usually through ignorance, they fail to grasp the enormity of what we all face in later life. And they are genuinely puzzled. And they think I'm either slightly mad or barking mad, depending. Nothing I can do about that, you know. I've had people say, "Why are you doing this?" And I think, I just haven't got the crayons to explain it to you. Sorry.
And is it they're trying to tell you that they think you're putting yourself in danger, or do they just
think it's weird or odd or unnecessary, perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah. The world I live in within physiotherapy, and I see it's more prevalent that people understand the benefits of strength training as you get older, and sometimes it's easier for people coming in to see me to normally an injury will help that motivation to start, but I think it definitely highlights the kind of misconception that still exists, that people think that as you get older you have to stick to swimming or you have to stick to
Golf.
Pilates and yoga. And I've got nothing against those. I think they're great forms of exercise, but often there's that something missing, and yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that people have questioned what you're doing.
The other one I hate to hear, and you still hear it everywhere, is women saying, "Oh, I can't do that. I don't want to get big." And like Arnold said, when somebody said to him, "I don't want to end up like you," and he said, "Don't worry, you never will."
Yeah, you talk about it within the ebook in the theory, but there's a bit of science to how many repetitions you achieve failure at, to actually whether you get stronger, whether you muscle hypertrophy, or whether you focus on the endurance. And strength doesn't necessarily have to come with size. And like you say, someone like Arnie will have been doing sort of maybe 2 sessions
a day
per day, multiple days per week. And if you're just doing it 3 days a week, 2 days a week, you won't necessarily build the size. And yeah, there's definitely a few still myths and misconceptions out there. And how are you feeling about the future now, in terms of, are you hoping maybe that 10 years is now another sort of 15 or?
Well, I've been looking on the support page, and there's quite a few postings on there of men in their 70s knocking 30-year-olds into a cocked hat. And hey ho, could be me. You never know. I would hope that I can carry on. It's compressing that last sliver of your life into the smallest possible chunk, isn't it? Where you need constant care and all the rest of it, and trying to compress that into the tiniest sliver and keep active and strong. And I hope I'd like to get this weight off, and I'd like to get a bit bigger. Actually, that's what I'd like to do. Yeah, I would.
The last thing I wanted to come on to was sort of the barriers to persevering with the strength training. Is there anything you're kind of worried about that might derail you, and have you kind of tried to come up with any strategies to kind of counter that?
Well, the only barrier I can foresee is ill health of some sort. But apart from that, there are no barriers to my persevering. I've got all the motivation and self-discipline I need to do this. And I've mentioned I've had to work around a laundry list of injuries I've acquired over my lifetime, but I'm comfortable that I've mitigated those as much as I can. So all I've got to do, and loads of people on the support page will say this: consistency. You've got to keep, don't give up, just keep going. Just keep going and you'll get the results. And that's what I intend to do.
Definitely. Because out of interest now, when we spoke last, that you're doing the workouts twice a week, and you'd hope at some point to move up to 3 times a week. Are you at the 3 times a week now, or?
Well, I'm at sort of 2.5, depending. Other things get in the way. I have got a life, believe it or not, and I've got a wife, and we have things we have to do.
Yeah.
And such as this morning, I was supposed to work out this morning, train this morning. I must stop saying work out, train. And she had to go to a chiropody appointment, but I'm expecting an important delivery. So I couldn't be away from the house where the phone is, because my barn is too far away for the phone to work. So I had to give that up. And it's working out to about 2.5, because the other side of it is recovery. That's the other thing I struggle with quite a lot.
Yeah.
Is I'm sore, and I think, oh, this is going to hurt. But generally, once I get loosened up and warm, the pain goes. But I've got to be careful not to push it too hard, because of my age, really.
Yeah, and like you say, it's the consistency to it, and a lot of people, you can kind of come at it two mindsets. If you try to do 3 a week, and some weeks you failed, then some people see it as a failure and a negative, and then it almost opens a floodgate. So you think, well, if I can't do the 3, then why bother? Whereas if you think of it as, I'm going to do 2, and on some weeks you do 3, they're kind of bonus workouts that you fit into it. And I always say that to people is go one below and always feel positive that you've done that. And then if you keep doing bonus ones, then fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's a few books out there that talk about creating habits and things like that. And like you say, it's a consistency. And if you miss one, that's absolutely fine. Everyone misses one. It's what you do next.
Yes.
If you let the next one miss it, or
no,
that's the important one. And that's how you get your motivation and measure your motivation. It's not how good your motivation is on the good days. It's how good it is on the bad days. And
I know all about the I really, really don't feel like this at all. And oftentimes I've found in life, you generally put in a very good performance, such as parkrun. There's times when I've thought, oh, I can't do this today. And I've said to the wife, because we go together, I've said, oh, I'm just in get round mode here. And I've come back and put a PB in, personal best, because once you switch off, your mind about whether you required to perform or not, it becomes so much easier, I think.
what would you say to someone who's been thinking of starting to either step in the gym or start lifting weights or start with the strength training process, but is a bit hesitant and not sure if it's the right thing to do or not? Have you got any advice for anyone in that boat?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'd say buy the ebook, read it thoroughly, make sure you understand all of the issues involved and how they relate to you and your personal situation. Then get on and execute the program, and never give up.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, thank you. And I mean, you covered the next bit was if anyone was slightly hesitant about buying the ebook, but no, you've covered that. And
well, I've got something to say about that.
Yeah.
I would say if somebody had reservations about buying the ebook, this is what I'd say to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so silly. It's the best tenner you may ever spend. It's the price of a couple of cups of coffee or 3 pints down the local. What is the matter with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Good. And then, anything else that you kind of wanted to add that you think we've not covered that would be interesting?
Yeah, the only thing I've mentioned it a few times during this interview, I'd say join the Facebook support page. It really is the best behaved page I've ever seen on Facebook. You will be welcomed and encouraged if you engage with it.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So, for anyone listening who's not sure what page that means, there it's the Never Too Old to Lift Workout Accountability Facebook group, and I'll put again a link in the description. But yeah, anyone's welcome, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about anyone thinking about strength training. It could be any form of exercise or anyone who just wants to be healthier. And yeah, we've got a great group in there, and yeah, I thank you, Zach, for being as kind of contributing towards it as much as you do. And we've got a couple of characters that are always posting in there, and then everyone else kind of chips in. And yeah, like you say, it's great. I've never had to step in to deal with any kind of issues or anyone sort of bullying as such in there, and I've not had to kick anyone out yet. It's the behaviour in there is great, and it is such a supportive environment. So yeah, I appreciate you saying some nice words about that too.
Okay, no problem.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time and coming back on. And I really think just these kind of chats inspire people to start training more than me just talking about the theory, and just having people who've gone through that process. It really helps people kind of picture themselves doing the same thing. And it's been great to hear your story, and I wish you luck with continuing with the other program you're on at the moment. And I think that's great, and that's what I want. Is the ebook is just to get people started, and I'm not going to claim to be someone who will get you to the top of any powerlifting competition. It's once you got started, you can find your own other programs to kind of explore from there. But the starting is the hardest bit, and
that's exactly what's happened with me. I lack direction, as I've said before. Your ebook gave me that direction and gave me a program which I finished, and now, as I have to, I've moved on, and hopefully I'll onward and upward, as they say.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, wish you luck with that, and we may check in and find out how you're doing it maybe a year in the future or something.
Let's see.
Brilliant. Okay, well, take care.
Thank you, Chris.
If you would like to know how you could get started with strength training, please go to nevertaughttolift.com/ebook.